Hey, everybody, welcome back. Glad to have you back for another edition of the Third and Leng Podcast. Edgy Tim here, along with, well, you know him, you love him. I don't know why, but you do. He's redesigned the set for the third time this season. I think he's getting mad. Are you getting close? You getting happy to what you have?
We're getting close. We need to get the banner up a little bit higher. It's just like with every good football team. Every week we get a little bit better.
Definitely, for sure. And again, I want to welcome everybody for watching and love the feedback. So if you guys ever have questions or what have you, leave them in the comments. At minimum, it's good and entertaining for us to read. So always appreciate that. If you're watching this, give us a like, give us a follow, and just let us know. So again, we are going to have a very special guest tonight, Matt, who we're going to bring in here in a little bit. But in the meantime, I know as usual, you have your very important opening statements. Matt, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, you got the first one there. I was going to hope you were going to read them to me, but
no.
The first one is just big numbers. We had some big numbers down here last week, and then the previous week. So those numbers are 105 and 201. And so when we talk about 105, we had an incredible game down at Tolono Unity, with Tolono Unity taking on Belleville-Altoff. Belleville-Altoff wins 53-52 for a combined 105 points. All the fireworks happened there in the last quarter with Dier Hill, and I'll talk about him here soon. And then 201, we kind of forgot about this, but, Derek Leonard just got his 200th victory, and I think you saw his 201st victory. And, hey, he's doing great things down there, and so I think we'd just be remiss not to talk about that right out of the gates.
So again, you also mentioned you want to talk about some big names here as well.
Yeah, big names. Guys that I've been kind of keeping my eyes on, and right now, in our area, I think people are still kind of talking about that Tolono Unity Belleville-Altoff game, and obviously, Dier Hill was the star of the show. He had, 23 carries for 255 yards. He had 3 or 4 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown to get them within one, and then he got the 2-point conversion to win the ball game. If no one knows about him, I'm sure, Tim can tell him a little bit. He's an Oregon Duck commit. The guy is legit, and he just. A lot of fireworks there at Tolono Unity on Friday night. Dane Eisenberger, the quarterback for Tolono Unity, was 27 out of 42 for 543 yards, so that's not too shabby. And then some other guys that I think we should kind of talk about too is we haven't really talked about this kid, and we haven't really talked about Maroa Forsyth very much, but they're going to be one of the top teams to beat in 2A. And Peyton Smith is a kid that just kind of flipped his commitment and is now going to go to the University of Illinois.
Is it Grant Smith? Grant Smith, I believe.
Or Grant Smith, I'm sorry. He is a very, very, very big football player that's still growing in his body. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, and his dad was a legitimate, 6'8" guy, played for Findlay High School, and I think his dad got like a tryout with the San Diego Chargers and didn't even play a lick of football in high school. So this kid's still going to grow into his body, but those are the 3 big names right there. So after big numbers and big names,
got to be big games.
Yeah, it's a big game. So here we go. We have 11 teams that are vying for playoff eligibility on Friday night. We have some big names. 2 of them are taking on one another at Bismarck-Henning. That'd be Bismarck-Henning against Salt Fork, and that'll be played at Peyton Moss Field. So that'll be a great, great game. Our guest tonight will be able to talk a little bit about some of the coaches over there in that neck of the woods in the Vermilion County. But the following teams are 4-0. Bismarck-Henning, Salt Fork, Clinton, Arthur, Momence, Sullivan, Paxton Buckley Loda, St. Joe, Gibson City, Eureka, and the Leroy Panthers, who take on Tuscola in a big homecoming match. So, again, we got big numbers, we got big names, we got big games on Friday night.
We definitely do, Matt. And again, without any real further ado, I think I screwed up a little bit and brought the screen up a little early. So people got a little bit of a sneak preview. But very excited and just very happy to bring in the head coach of the Leroy Panthers, BJ Zeleznik, joins us. And Coach, first of all, appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule. As you mentioned before we went live, it's homecoming. Like you didn't have enough to do this week. So again, thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you guys do for small school football.
Matt, fire away. Up, caught you drinking on the job already.
No, like my time has kind of come and gone, in terms of high school football, and my life's changed a little bit, but I still love the game so much that Tim, you allow me to be on this podcast and do this. And it allows me to reach out to coaches. But, when I was wanting to become a high school football coach, I had some pretty big, strong influences like in my life that kind of formed me and what I knew I wanted to run in order to be good if I ever got a chance to be a small town football coach. And probably the first influence was my high school coach, Lloyd Schwarzentraub over at Alwood, and then John Elder at Alexis. And he was kind of probably one of the four guys you could put on the Mount Rushmore of IHSA football. While I was going to college, I had a chance to coach with Brian Benning up at McChesney Park, Harlem, and he had won a state championship in Orangeville. So in between those two times right there, there was a moment where I coached at Ridgeview, and I had the opportunity to kind of go up and battle wits as an assistant coach against Leroy. And in 1996, I saw some intense football from the Leroy Panthers, and I remember that atmosphere there at that football field. And I kind of just remembered what it felt like. I remember what that football, what it meant, what the philosophy was. And I always kept that in the back of my brain. And so when I got the opportunity to coach at Fisher High School, I knew that one of the measuring sticks to whether we were going to be a good football team or not was that we had to not just compete with Leroy, we had to beat Leroy. And we had those opportunities, and we had some really great battles. And I would say BJ Zeleznik and a lot of people over at Leroy are people that I really admire, really respect. And they kind of helped form me as a football coach because I kept it pretty simple. It was going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And a lot of that I learned from our guest tonight.
So do you have a question?
Well, so my question is, those are my influences. Coach, what are some of your football influences? As you were going to college at Augustana, and you had your dad. What were some of your influences that you had?
Well, to have the opportunity to play at Augie in the mid '90s, caught the tail end of the Bob Reed era, and then the Schmalbach era, and working with Coach Johnson. They were very much a program that was system based and ground and pound and that mentality. And had a lot of success doing it. So I was fortunate to be there and see some great players over the years. I was not one of them. I was a role player, but had some great players and I was able to learn a lot under what they were doing there at Augie. But yeah, the Seneca teams, I don't know if you remember the Seneca teams of the late 80s, early 90s, wing T based. I think Coach Lett was the guy's name. Outstanding wing T program. And that really influenced us at Leroy heading into the 90s. And we based our system quite a bit around what Seneca was doing at that time. We based some of our dive stuff off that Orangeville team of '89 that was so good, running the split back dive offense. So those were things as a kid, and moving into high school and seeing those influences upon my father and how he was creating that identity within our program at Leroy. And we've had that identity now for over 40 years. We were a wing T team, not exclusively some wing I, but downhill, coming at you. And we just feel like that, to teach the game of football, in our opinion, to get the most out of it, to maximize what you want kids to learn, you've got to challenge them in some ways. And we feel like the system that we run challenges them emotionally and gets them to grow before they leave our program.
Coach, when did you realize the Augie impact? And it's amazing the amount of people that I've talked to over the years around this state. And you hear all the time about, these guys that go on and play big time college football. But I'm telling you, you go in the coaching community at every level in the state of Illinois, there is some Augustana influence somewhere. When did you really realize the impact that Augie has had on really football across this state?
Yeah, the number of guys that are out there that went through that program, and I mean big time names and titans of the coaching world, whether it's high school or wherever. But it was awe inspiring. And like I said, I was buried on the depth chart. I was a scout team guy, but to be able to see the guys that they were able to bring in at that time, Scott Tumulty is a guy that sticks in my head. What a wonderful person and an amazing athlete. And we had a quarterback by the name of Tommy King. And, these are guys who I didn't hardly know. I mean, they were on the team and I was a freshman, but they left an impact on you just the way they played and that attitude, that Augie spirit. It was very impressive. And, it was a wonderful opportunity as, when people are trying to decide, what they want to do after high school. If you do want to go into coaching, going into teaching, and I strongly suggest join a good program just to be around it and see how they operate. And that's what I got out of it. It was just an opportunity to see how they scheduled day to day and, how they get through a game week and then, how they game plan and the accountability to which they hold their athletes to. It was a very impressive environment.
Matt?
I was just going to say, Coach, like for me, I have my speed dial where I know there's certain guys I'm going to call if I want to talk about wing T football. Who are some of those guys on your speed dial that if you had to talk to them about wing T football, who would they be? And, what qualities and characteristics do they bring? I mean, I think we know of one up in the northern part of the state with the Byron football team, but there's probably others that I can't think of. And I didn't know if you had those guys on the top of your head.
Well, nowadays I've completely turned over the offensive side. So we are a flex bone team now. We are triple option. So if you think, Service Academy, Cary Grove, any of those programs, that's what we're doing now. I brought in a guy who knows by the name of John Diedrich, who knows that system, knows how to install it, knows how to run it. He does an outstanding job. It is, again, it's a downhill running system. So in that regard, philosophically, we are still in line with what our basic philosophy has been: run the football, defend the run, and do those two things well at a small school, and you give yourself a chance if you got the dudes. But when I was calling offense and we were a wing T exclusive program, my old man, I mean, my dad, he knew, all the if then scenarios. And that's what you got to have. You got to have a guy that can help you. If they do this, then we've got to do this. If they do this, then you got to do this. And that's all, that's what coordinating is at the end of the day. It's, drive for show, but putt for dough. And the putting for dough piece is being able to call a game on Friday night based upon what they're doing to you. And he was remarkable on the headset up in the press box on Friday nights when you're calling the offense.
How difficult is it in this day and age to sell that offense, or is it difficult?
No, I think it's I think a lot of it depends upon the culture of your community. But even that is changing. Kids have to understand and celebrate role. And it's a nonstop process. the recruiting aspect. Even, we're a small agrarian town, but the recruiting process never stops with families and kids, and to convince them the value of being a part of this program and what their kid can get out of it. You're talking about the Hill kid from Althoff, who we saw in the playoffs last year. He's an incredible player. We do not have a single kid with an offer, right?
Right.
And I've only had one kid in my 22 years who got a ride anywhere. And so it is about development of culture and development of community, and getting kids to understand that this is your first step towards living a life for others, because that's what adulthood is. You live your life for others, and this is a microcosm of that, where your actions impact everybody. And so it's really teaching that family and community aspect of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And this style lends itself to that. Everyone has to make sacrifices in this offense, and to not block to the whistle is doing such a disservice, because you are setting your running back up to get hit, however you want to sell it.
Yep.
But it's a part of doing things to help others. And I also feel like, from a mentality standpoint, your kids physically and emotionally doing this again and again and again, learn to start to handle tough situations.
Matt?
Coach, I was just going to ask you, I had some similarities too in terms of going from wing T to triple option. At my year with Eric at Olympia, that was a game changer for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to sit up in the booth and watch that, and so I know that his influence obviously is coach up at Cary Grove. And how did you transition? I know with Coach Dietrich, he coached with Coach Palmer at Fisher,
yep.
and they installed that stuff over there at Fisher, and were really successful doing that. Yeah. And how did you kind of adjust to that from angles, wing T angles to? I'll be honest with you, when I would listen to the complexities, to me it was complex, of the triple option. It felt like a wiring mess, but I know it's really simple. But it was, there was a transition for me to kind of learn on the go. And how have you transitioned with that?
What was interesting about it was the decision to go to it. And a lot of it had to do with what Fisher was doing, and what Zach Zare, who was at Tremont at the time, what he was doing. So here we were, sitting in the Heart of Illinois Conference, and you'd had a run where GCMS and Tri-Valley and DMAC were all winning state titles and going to the state finals. And you had Fisher High School in 2017 and 2019 step on the field and not only compete, but beat a couple of those schools. And, again, it's that service school mentality. Okay, here we are. We're sitting here. We're at 225 students in our school. Some years we're going to have the bodies. We do this year. And some years we're not. How are we going to be year in and year out consistently successful? And you have got to have a system in place. And you've got to have a system in place where you're not necessarily having to go toe-to-toe with an entire defensive front. And that, of course, that's the history of the option, right? That's what it does for you. And what I love about the option is it gives you a point of attack double team that you don't have to have the biggest, baddest dudes. And if they know how to do a good double team and blow a D lineman off the ball, you've got a bubble. Yeah. And at that point, hey, now we've got something to work with. And we saw Tremont and Fisher during those few years have success, said, hey, look, if we're going to hang around with these guys, these 2A programs that we've got to compete with, year in and year out. That, the other thing with small school football is geography and economics plays such a huge part in your district and your numbers and the type of kid you're getting out. And so you've got to be able to remove as many of those variables as possible to be competitive. And for us, we want to be competitive. And so it was, off-season program and have a system that allows you to be competitive. And if we have that, then we feel like year in and year out, we can put a product on the field that the community will be proud of and that the kids will have a good experience.
What I find amazing, and again, just some of that insight you just gave us is phenomenal. But you're at a school that's been playing football, well, at least as far as we know, going back to 1900. And I'm sure it's even further back then, but somebody didn't fill out their report card or something.
Yeah.
What is that like? I mean, obviously you've been around that program for years and years and years, but I got to imagine talking about your system and what you run. Part of that ties it, I would imagine, has to tie into the history of the school.
Yeah.
And gives you that connection. That's got to be an unbelievable feeling to be around that program that long and to be tied into that history that goes so far back.
I want to add something too, real quick, on that history. Your dad coached you.
Yes.
And now you're coaching your son. So have you, while you answered Tim's question, ponder that, because I think that's really special.
Yeah. So to Tim's point and question, so we're celebrating our 125th year this year.
Wow.
We're taking 1900 and saying, okay, let's have a celebration. So we've got 125 years. We've got a cool decal on our helmets, commemorating that on one side. This Friday, in fact, our homecoming game, we are celebrating the legacy of L.A. McCain. So L.A. McCain is a 1978 Illinois high school football coaches Hall of Fame inductee. And he was Leroy's football coach for 20 years, from 1920 into the 1940s. He had a little time off in there. But guy won over 100 games, had 4 undefeated seasons. So we've got his grandkids, great-grandkids, and great-great-grandkids coming back Friday night. And we're going to recognize his legacy at halftime, because really the first 50 years of the 20th century, he was the standard. They called him Mr. Football, and they called him Coach Mack and all that. So we're going to celebrate that history. That's one piece. We had an all-program reunion this summer where we had a couple hundred guys come back that had played from the 60s all the way up. So it's really important for us to make sure that we maintain contact with that history and with those people and with those lives. Because as we know, we come and then we go, and then that's it, and time moves on, and the people writing the history books move on. And, so it's important to us here in Leroy to make sure that we continue to recognize and contact and reach out to these people that have helped build this program. Now, my parents moved to Leroy in 1971. My dad's been coaching in the football program since then. So 53 years he's been involved. Was head coach for 22 and coached me and started the Leroy Tri-Valley Co-op back in 1988, which was an incredible co-op. That naturally, ended up splitting as the east side of Bloomington blew up and Tri-Valley blew up. When that co-op started, Tri-Valley was smaller than Leroy, which is kind of crazy to think about. But when that community and that school district grew, we then split. And of course, we've both had some outstanding seasons separate, but we're always, combined. We're always connected. Josh Roop and I played together in high school, and there's so many ties between those two programs. It's remarkable. So we always appreciate them over there at Tri-Valley. But, so we went through that process. The biggest thing, historically for our program that when I took over that I had to deal with was when you have a separation of a cooperative, you've got to bring your families in town back into the fold, because we were getting 100 kids out for football between us and Tri-Valley. You know, we were a massive program. You know, in that last year in 01, we went to the 3A title. We were big, we were strong, we were deep. I mean, it was crazy. And then it split, and now we're on our own. And so it was back to, hey, we've got to recruit families in Leroy to be a part of this program, because, you know, we've seen in small school 11, man, how quickly your program can disappear. You are staring your program's mortality in the face every year if you're not working.
Yeah.
Get kids out.
Yeah.
You know? And so to me, all of that 125 years, all that history and all those people, you know, that's what drives me day in and day out is this thing's got to keep going. We've got to keep pushing and working to make sure it remains something that families and kids in this community want to be a part of.
Hey, Coach, I'm sure you're very aware of this, but I thought I would just point this out for everyone else. Don't know if you've ever gone back and look at your dad's coaching record and your coaching record. It's frighteningly similar. Frighteningly. So they have your dad down for 22 years, total record of 140 and 79. Okay.
140 and 79. Okay.
140 and 79. And, you know, oh, by the way, the 96, you know, state title. Can't forget that either. We've got you down for 21 seasons, 130 and 81. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
That's frighteningly similar.
Yeah. 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 Well, this is year 22 for me. So yeah, I know it could end up being a dead heat.
Well, it would be nice to get caught up this year with that state title thing with your dad.
Oh, he holds that over. You know, so Gary Tipsword was the guy who coached between us. And Gary went 24-2 in 2 years. Was a remarkable coach, decided to go into administration. And so I got the job after him. But he reminds Gary and I often, you know, if we get a little sassy with him, he reminds us that we may have made it to the state finals, but he won it. So yeah, I'd love to be able to
no doubt
break that. But oh boy, I tell you,
if I'm him, I've got the best winning percentage of all coaches in the history of Leroy. That's how I'm selling that one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, but man, the landscape of 1A though nowadays is not the landscape of the 90s and the 2000s. It is changed with 8-man.
Yeah,
that was
IHSA policy, but it's different.
That was a question I was going to ask you, Coach. You know, I talked to Toby Vallis a lot over at Farmington, and you know, when I was over at Havana, the demographics or just the geographic locations of eroding populations had a lot to do with the merger of conferences. And I wanted to know, now that you guys have merged in a conference, and now the Havana Ducks and the Farmington Farmers have merged in conferences, and the Lincoln Trails merged, and all this and that, has the game changed for the good? Or what are maybe some positive? What are some concerns? If you had a crystal ball and you were to look at, you know, 8-man, 1-man, you know, how many classes are we going to have? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, has the game changed for the good? Has the game changed for the bad? What do you envision?
I think it's just changed. I don't necessarily want to put a label on it. You know, we label everything, and really it's all about your approach mentally. You got to adjust, right? You know, so every year that if we get bounced from the playoffs, it is, well, hey, what do we got to do different? And because ultimately this is an educational thing, right? This is an extension of the classroom, and we get caught up in the entertainment side of it. And, you know, I don't even get me into the shot clock thing for high school basketball, because that is entertainment based, period. Yep. And we are not an entertainment industry, right? But that's for another podcast on another day.
We'll have you back.
But it forces you to change, you know, and it is scary. And, you know, every once in a while I'll have a conversation with an 11-man 1A coach, and say, hey, what are we going to do? Obviously districts have been discussed. There's pros and the cons with that. Our merger with the CIC is intelligent from the standpoint of it does help the smaller schools pick up, I guess you could say, a competitively equal, as competitively equal a schedule as you could get. And that's not to say that you shouldn't play schools bigger than you, because you absolutely should. You got to test yourself, challenge yourself. But that's not always a viable option when you're fighting to keep your program alive. So if you're in a closed district and you've got 100 boys in your school, period, and that's what you have to choose from.
Yeah.
And you're getting, hey, let's say you're getting 40% of them, which is great. You're getting 40 out, but you're like, hey, fellas, we're going to line up against 2A and 3A schools every week. That is why the conference hopping is happening, because people realize it's not sustainable at that point. And conferences are coming into, or schools are coming into their conference meetings, and they're saying, hey, we're out the door unless, we do something that we can pick up some more 1A schools. So it's a matter of reaching out, and now that's not just a 1A problem, right? It's a problem for everybody trying to fill a schedule. So you reach out to conferences that may be a fit for your conference. For the HOI, we're fortunate for our bigger half and our smaller half to find the CIC schools because they do fit that bill for us. They help our 1A schools fill a schedule that they can compete in. And our larger schools are not having to look for open dates all the time either. So it's helped both sides of it. And I think it's highly intelligent. And, the people that sit there and say, well, you just got to get better. You've got to work harder. You've got to, all right. Well, I would like you to come and coach in a small school of 200 kids.
Yeah. Sure.
And try to put something. It is hard. You've got to have consistency in leadership. And that goes for everywhere. But if you don't have consistency in leadership, community support, administrative support, you could be in trouble real quick at a small school. And now you're having discussions about 8-man, or you're having discussions about co-ops. So for us, it was, how do we save the HOI small? How do we keep schools invested in a part of this that's been a good thing? And we felt like that merger allowed us to do that.
Coach, let's get into the 2024 Leroy Panthers a little bit. Was this a team in the works from a year ago? Because obviously last year had a nice season at 9-2, and now you come flying out of the gates. Did it kind of really begin last year with this group?
Yeah, it did. I think for them, it's a fascinating group, really. We've got 18 seniors. They were kind of an experimental group in that they're the first class to come through Leroy that never played tackle football. We went to straight flag at our JFL system. Again, that was a decision we made for us locally because we've got to maximize participation as a small school. And we felt like we were losing kids at a very young age because they were not emotionally or physically ready for tackle football.
What do you do for flag? Is that 3, 4, 5, 6?
We do it all the way through 8. Our 7th and 8 do tackle bar.
Yeah.
So that's thud wrap. But that's as close as we get to tackle at our JFL levels. And again, that is a local decision that you've got to make. What's in the best interest of your program moving forward? And we made that decision. And this group of seniors was the first group. We had 27 that came through. That's a monster number. We had 24 sign up as freshmen. And we're going to finish with 18. And I've never had in my 22 years 18 seniors. It's the most seniors we've had. This group has been together since they were kindergartners. It's just one of them deals, and several of them are 3-year starters. And yeah, we had a good year last year. Our seniors last year deserve a ton of credit because we had back-to-back 3 and 6 seasons. And the two groups together said, hey, we need to stop this. And they made a commitment to the offseason these last 2 years that has been tremendous. And they've put us back in the playoffs and playing at a high level.
Who are some of the names, Coach? Who do we need to become more aware of?
Well, I don't talk about them a lot, just because it's the way I was a coach's kid, and that's how it is. You grow up in a coach's house, you show up and do your job, and but my kid's pretty good. And he deserves all the credit. He's a 7-day-a-week guy. He chose to be a wrestler because of the benefits that wrestling was going to provide him. A lot of his teammates chose to do that as well. We have an excellent wrestling program. So that mindset to sharpen your mentality, he chose to do that. He's outstanding in the weight room. And obviously his football IQ is very high. So he rushed for 1,500 yards last year and was an all-stater. And he's definitely our leader, running the option at the quarterback position. He's a fullback playing quarterback. We never throw the ball ever. I think we've thrown 2 pass attempts this year. So we may have to do that at some point, but he's tough. And then we've got a kid by the name of Stephon Williams. He's a big 220-pound fullback for us in that triple option. And he takes a toll on. We are not flashy. We are not big play. We are very methodical. I'd say we're not the most talented team. We're physical and we're methodical, and we grind out yards. And it's centered around those two. We have Coach, 2 very good guards.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, your main guard.
Yeah.
Elaborate about him, please.
Tate Sigler. He's a 6'3", 250-pound guard for us, returning all-conference player. And he's again, good football IQ. That's the thing. Good teams are football intelligent. And we have several football intelligent kids. Our other right guard was an all-conference player last year. His name was Ash Osborne as well. He's 6'2", 230. So when you're talking about having to get double teams to create bubbles inside the hole that you're trying to run the option, having those 2 guys, and we have a very good junior center by the name of Nate McKinney that is good too. So our middle 3 really drive us up front. And then we have just steady guys who are 3-year players. Landon Welty is a 3-year player for us at wing and at defensive back. And, so we're fortunate. We're blessed. It's rare that you have this at a school our size.
Coach, I was going to ask you, I'm basking in the glow down here in Champaign with our Fighting Illini football team. And I know one of the guys that Coach Bielema has in the secondary is this Bailey kid that came out of Moline High School. And, they kind of call him the quarterback of the defense. Who do you have on your defensive side of the ball that kind of, is kind of maybe your bell cow? Do you have someone in the secondary that kind of, then trickles down to the linebacker and the defensive line? Can you talk a little bit about some guys?
Yeah, we've got one kid. So the Sigler and Osborne kid both play tackle. We've got pretty good depth at tackle. They rotate quite a bit, but they are double team eaters. We do have a kid by the name of Andrew Fleming. He's 6'3", 195-pound defensive end for us, who was a returning unanimous all-conference player last year. He is a sledgehammer. In our system, we crash our DNs. We do a lot of wrong arming technique to force GT schemes to bounce. And he's a sledgehammer on that. He does a great job. And he got unanimous all-conference, not because of his tackle numbers, because his ability to blow up off-tackle run schemes.
So you would call him your disruptor.
Yes, he is a disruptor. And then our guy in the middle, Brock Owens, is a returning all-conference player for us at inside linebacker. He led us with 105 tackles last year. He's leading us in tackles this year. Very physical downhill inside linebacker. In our entire secondary returns, I have always felt that defensive lines and secondaries that can cover the pass and tackle are going to win you state titles. your linebacking crew can be good, but if your D line is dominant and your secondary is good, then you've got a state caliber defense. And we've got a secondary who they're all 3-year players and very confident, communicate well. So it's been fun coaching this year. I tell you, not near as stressful as it's been some years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach, I asked this question to a coach last week and almost got him in trouble a little bit in a good way. But what I want to throw at you is, again, just thinking out of the box here a little bit. Is there a team out there that you've always wanted to play against?
Oh, we've had a thing over the years. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what we called them. My mind just went blank. But bucket list games.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Every program should have bucket list games. We've been to Aledo and we've played DeCoin and we played Althoff, which that wasn't fun, but it was,
Lena Winslow came down and played you one year, right?
We have never played Lena.
Oh, there you go.
We got a 2-year deal with Forreston, 25 and 26.
Wow.
So that'll be cool. Morrison kicked the crap out of us a couple of years ago on 55 on us. That was fun. But so we've been, in all these years in the playoffs, we've played so many different programs with their own cool just cultures and environments.
Yeah.
And we love a matchup against a marquee program. The people get excited about it. And, we went down and played at the Snake Pit during COVID and played Mount Carmel.
Oh, yeah. Been there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Really cool setting. And again, wasn't fun. They whipped us, but it was neat to make the trip.
To get kids out of their environment and see other environments. I think it's so you talk about it being an educational process, and I just think it just really is. They have to see other venues. They have to see other areas of the state.
Yes.
Absolutely. Is this the point of the show where I bring up 1 through 32 seating yet, or no? Do I have to wait a little while?
I don't care either way. I really don't. Yeah. I thought 1 through 32 made a ton of sense, but
me too.
Football is so unique.
Yes.
And we need all the other sports and administrators to stay out of it.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It is so unique, and not everybody makes the playoffs, and you play one time a week. Yep. Let's travel and play it straight out.
That's it.
But
that's it right there.
Whatever.
Coach,
I can throw all those rocks sitting here, but
I
get how difficult it is to make those decisions.
Coach, real quick, I mean, what is it like coaching your son? I mean, I know you've elaborated a little bit about him, and this is a special year. This is a neat time. I've known you for quite some time, and I've respected everything about Leroy football, and I can only imagine that this has got to be a really, really unique, special, intense, fun, adrenaline-filled time right now.
Yeah, we were talking about beforehand about wanting it to slow down. I still vividly remember when that clock hit 0 in my final football game in high school.
Wow.
And it was at Paxton Buckley Loda. Jerry Zimmerman, I don't know if you guys remember Jerry, their Hall of Fame coach, was coaching there. He had a great team. They knocked us out, and that day's coming. It's tough to think about. It really is. But it's a beautiful thing. And whether we're standing on the turf somewhere or at Illinois State University, or whether we're standing in a cornfield at Camp Point or wherever the heck we are, whenever it ends, it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
But it's been great, and couldn't be prouder of what they've done for our program. these last couple of years and what he has done for our program.
So that's great, but I got to get a little more into detail on that. Okay. So do we have guidelines? Do we have rules? Are we allowed to talk football at home? Is there a certain time where you can talk football at home? Fill us in, Coach.
Yeah. So we don't. I mean, I grew up in a house. My dad didn't talk. We didn't talk shop at home.
Right.
He was my dad at home. I was his son. Bo and I don't talk shop at home. He's got a crazy busy life. I couldn't be prouder of him. He's involved in everything. I mean, everything. And he is coming and going all the time with responsibilities, with clubs and activities and that stuff. And I'm not going to hang any more pressure on him at home. Then I know what he's feeling, right? I mean, I know what it's like. And he's the guy, right? So he handles it very well. He handles it first class. And I always tell people he's got a lot of his grandpa in him. Right. He handled both his grandpas, both tough, solid guys and just salt of the earth. But no, we don't broach it. I do every once in a while say, hey, just make sure and check in on this guy. Make sure you're looking after your teammates. But we don't talk X's and O's.
Does he educate you on music or any of the style factions?
He and his mom have a very close relationship when it comes to music. He and I don't talk music much at all, but he and his mother, they talk a lot about music. So we've got Matt, we've got a fascinating home dynamic at our house.
It's very nice.
So we've got an older son who's 19. Abraham is a beautiful kid who has some significant disabilities, and he's got a younger sister who's 14, who's an amazing, wonderful individual who also has some significant disabilities.
Very beautiful family. I'm very proud of you, Coach. I'm very proud of you.
It's an amazing. It's made me a completely different person.
Yeah, it changes everything.
But it's wonderful, and so he has grown up in a unique environment, and he learned from a very young age how to process things a little bit differently than maybe your average family. I don't know, but it's unique. And so I think that's played a little bit into him being able to handle and process things on the field and difficult situations. And it's kind of formed his emotional strength for sure. So
it's awesome. Yeah. Absolutely awesome. It's funny, Matt, you can't really go the music route anymore because you have the 80-year-old Rolling Stones still touring the world. Look at all the music people are listening to. It was stuff we listened to when we were growing up. It's totally different now. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
What's on the pregame there, Coach? What do you got?
They still go back. There's still some good 90s stuff that they play. Yeah, I mean they have their modern stuff, but there's still a lot of good 90s metal music.
So we could see Motley Crue, Scorpions, Avenged Sevenfold, Slipknot. We can see it all, right?
Yeah, they've got all of that, and then they've got a lot of their. It goes
a lot of rap, a lot of hip hop.
Rap, hip hop, country, metal. Yeah. Rage Against the Machine is still very popular.
I mean, did you guys ever think your kids would be listening to music that you listened to when you were a kid? I didn't listen to anything my dad played.
Now, I will say that back then, because you had so few options, when you're in the car, you listen to whatever they had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm talking like from teenage years on. If you're forming your own musical taste, they're still listening to that stuff. The stuff we listen to.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
it was groundbreaking.
I like to think we had exceptional music taste, but it might be a reach.
But it's pretty incredible, like the Motley Crues and the Metallicas, what they've done to kind of withstand. They have withstand, and and the kids like that stuff, and it's much needed. It's
Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction is still timeless.
They've been on tour for like 8 years now. I'm not kidding. Like literally have been on tour constantly around the world for 8 years, and they're still selling out arenas. It's amazing. Absolutely.
Physiologically makes no sense.
No, none. Absolutely none.
Coach, do you have a bucket list on someone you want to meet? A coach, a college coach, or a band?
You know, I loved. I mean, if we're talking coaching, I grew up just fascinated with Nebraska.
Yeah,
and their option football, and them being brave enough to mimic what Miami was doing defensively, and then come in the 90s and basically be the program of the 90s, and being so dominant. I was mesmerized with them growing up, and I'd love to talk to Tom Osborne. He, that guy, talk about calm, cool, and collected and system based. I thought what they did to Frank Solich was an absolute travesty.
No, it's terrible. No.
Yeah.
And he 53-14, and they run him out of town. Wild.
I mean, was there anything better than like late 70s, early 80s Oklahoma, Nebraska?
Yeah. I mean, that's
none better.
And now, we're getting one Saturday. Times change. Georgia, Alabama has become that.
Yep.
But man, it's a very different style.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Coach, just two more questions. Are there any new coaches out there that you think are kind of up and comers in the college ranks that maybe have caught your attention?
See, now you're getting me here, because I've ever explained to you how chaotic my life is. Man, I do think it's amazing what he's not an up and comer, but Monken at Army, what he does.
Yeah, that's true.
What Air Force is able to do.
Yep.
Being, we're flex bone, so obviously you're fascinated by those stories. Yeah. But also what the Navy coach that they let go, who now is out west.
Yep.
And what I can't pronounce his name.
I know
what he's able to do. It's amazing. Good people will find ways.
Yeah.
To get the job done, no matter the environment. The present day. I mean, we saw the news today with UNLV. The modern day college environment is different, but you still got guys out there that, man, they know how to get it done. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right, Matt. One more. We got to let Coach go. Otherwise, he's going to miss the game Friday.
Are you going to have a parking spot for me and a pork chop on Friday night?
I'll take.
No. Charge him double.
I'll send you parking information and where you should enter the
facility. I know where to park at, and I swear on my dad's grave that you sprinkle fairy dust down there inside the 20-yard lines for the opposing teams to not run good red zone offense. Because when my teams of Fisher came over there was something going on down there. I don't know what it was. Voodoo dolls.
Come on, sprinkle that voodoo dust all across the 20.
Tim.
Yeah.
Ask this guy right here. We had some battles.
I'm sure.
You want to talk about just lifetimes within your lifetime. I mean, that was a lifetime ago, but it was a lifetime.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will definitely be keeping an eye on you. We'll keep both eyes on you for the rest of the year. Big game, obviously, for you, homecoming, taking on Tuscola on Friday, Coach. Just best of luck. Appreciate you taking time out to join us, and best of luck the rest of the year.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I thank you for what you guys do for small school football. So it's good for our communities and good for our kids to get some recognition and airtime. So appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Coach. We appreciate
it. He won't stop calling my cell. If he'd stop calling my cell, I'd stop doing the show, but he won't leave me alone. So thanks, Coach.
There must be something about it.
Yeah.
Sorry for me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a piece of work. There's no doubt. So we appreciate it, Coach, and good luck. Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Take care.
See you Friday.
All right. So Coach drops out, Matt, and it's just you and I, but a lot of fun for sure.
I told you he was going to be well versed.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great guy, and to get into his family dynamic, and that's just amazing. So absolutely amazing. And yeah,
one of my mentors.
yeah,
It'll be a great atmosphere. Leroy Field is a great place to watch high school football. It'll be a really good game. It'll be a really good game. I think they'll have their hands full of Tuscola, but I think the world of him, and
yeah,
I'm glad we were able to have him on because I think he deserves it. I think great job on your research in terms of comparing him and his dad.
crazy.
Unbelievable.
I saw those numbers. I'm like, wow, that's weird. That's really weird. But
Good
again,
stuff, though. That was a good one. I hope the viewers enjoyed that one. That's good.
well, we'll have more coming. So we'll probably do another guest next week, and then as we get closer to playoffs, we'll do kind of a regular show. Because I like going a little bit extended on the guest. I think people will get feedback. By all means, give us feedback if you like the format or not. But Matt, we're almost an hour long, so we're going to wrap up.
Yep, that's fine.
But again, busy week this week. And in honor of Coach, Friday night, I'm going to see Cary Grove at Prairie Ridge.
Wow.
Two major smash 'em up option teams going head to head. And always look forward to that game because I know it probably won't take more than 2 hours total. So
yeah, no, good stuff. And I'll be after I'm in Springfield all day, I'm going to make the road trip over to Leroy.
There you go. All right. For the coach, Matt Lang, I'm Edgy Tim. Thanks, everybody. Come back next week. I'll tweet out probably early in the week. We'll let you know who the guest is going to be. But again, for Matt, I'm Edgy. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.